The new season of Gypsyrose Life After Lockup is finally here, and I have my thoughts, so let's get into it. Ken decided to up and move to Louisiana because once Gypsy found out she was pregnant, she didn't want to live another day in separate states as Ken. She demanded that he take all his savings, move up to Louisiana, and get the quickest place that he could find. And that's exactly what he did. He quit his job, he took his dog, he moved up there, and he got impatient. So he took the very first apartment that he came across, and he's not very happy with his decision. He says like there's not enough storage space in the apartment. It's really cramped. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, and he's got a really big dog that loves to be out and about and running around. And Gypsy, she's just happy she can have her little Kenny boy around. But they still live in separate cities. I'm not sure how far away they live, but she said they're in different areas. So it's not just like a 5-10 minute drive anytime he wants to go over to Gyp's house. He actually has to put some miles on his car. He said he's put over like 8,000 miles, I think, on his car since he's moved to Louisiana with all the driving he's been doing, because Gypsy's only allowed to go over to his place 2 days a week due to her parole. But he can come over to her house as many times as he wants. But he just don't like going over there because she only has a full-size bed and he has to have him a king-size bed. But they're sitting there talking about the baby, the plans for the baby, what they're going to do once the baby gets there. And Gypsy cannot move in with Ken until her parole is over. And I think she just said like not even a month ago or so on Instagram, I think she said she only has like 6 months left of her parole. So I'm sure she is counting down the days and cannot wait to move in with Ken. I'm sure her and Ken will be moved in together day one. With how codependent Gypsy is, I can tell she is really struggling not being able to spend more time with Ken or live with Ken right now. But I think it's good for her because like she said, she's dipping her toes in the water because otherwise she would go full balls to the wall. Ryan is still a mega simp. He doesn't want to say anything bad about Gypsy, and I just think it's because she's probably told him, Ryan, quit talking about me. And I think every time she talks to him, she gives him a little bit of hope or is nice to him, and Ryan might take it the wrong way and take it as flirting because that's what he wants to take it as, and then he just takes it and runs with it and then wants to protect her because he thinks that he actually has a chance. But Gypsy has made it clear she is done with Ryan. She has closed that chapter, and she's really hoping that this divorce will finally be what Ryan needs to be like, okay, yeah, it's time to move on. You know how some dudes date a girl that's way out of the league of all the other girls they've dated before, and they always hold on to that girl because it's the girl that got away. And I kind of think that's how Ryan sees Gypsy. Like, he thinks he's never going to get another girl like Gypsy or somebody that comes close to her. When in reality, I feel like if he just took the time to actually move on and see that there's other fish in the sea, he can see that it's not that hard to find another little Gypsy out there. Or someone that'll do even better that you can actually trust that's not going to go run off with her ex-boyfriend. But Ken, what got to me is Ken was sitting down with Gypsy and he was talking about how he doesn't really know, he didn't know how to react at first once he found out Gypsy was pregnant. He's not used to having a girl pregnant before. And he's like, yeah, I really wish Gypsy would have waited and got divorced first before she got pregnant because it's not a good look for me. I was like, wait a minute. Are you kidding me? Like, Ken was taking zero accountability at all in this situation. You can't put it all on Gypsy. Like, yeah, it would have been nice if she would have waited and divorced. But you were the one that was busting nuts in her before she was divorced. Busting nuts in a married woman. So he can't sit there and put it all on Gypsy. And I really hope they change the background of that bed because I'm going to go crazy that I have to just stare at that picture of them making out behind them on the bed all season for all their bedroom shots they do where they're talking like that. So they decide to go see a counselor. And they go and sit down, and at first I'm like, okay, this is kind of dumb, because it seemed like they were like really protecting each other at first and really playing it safe. Like they weren't really opening up about the challenges and obstacles they're having in the relationship. So I was like, okay, this is boring as hell. And I'm sure the Lifetime producers were probably like, cut. Okay, Gypsy, we're going to need you to bring up at least one problem. We need at least one problem, please. And then they sit there, and next thing you know, she's like, yeah, well, he doesn't like having hard conversations. She said anytime she brings up anything that he doesn't want to talk about, he just suddenly shuts down. And I think that could be one of multiple reasons. I feel like either he doesn't have very good problem solving skills, and he knows that he would rather just be quiet than look like a dummy, or he doesn't want to get triggered or get mad, or he might just like have that fight, flight, or freeze reaction where when someone's like facing intense conflicts, the body stress, the response can just trigger someone to freeze up. And this is a protective mechanism where the brain essentially shuts down to avoid further emotional pain. And maybe that might be what he's doing in this situation. All I know is it sounds like it's kind of a small problem in the relationship right now, but Gypsy better take that red flag real seriously, because I've had some relationships very similar to that, and I've ignored that same exact issue early on. If you can't communicate and figure out your issues early on, then what makes you think you're going to be able to do that later on in your relationship? I think that's just a sign of what's to come in the future. Then then she said that she felt like Ken cared too much about what social media thinks about him, and he was like, oh hell no, you're the one that cares too much about social media, and you're the one that stays scrolling all night long. And you could see the look in Gypsy's face. She did not like being exposed like that. She had a special look to her face when he said that. And the thing is, yes, she was talking about how she feels like he shuts down, but I still feel like she was protecting him. Like, I feel like they got real more serious issues on top of that. They just weren't willing to bring them to light on camera. They probably had an agreement before, like, okay, let's not talk about this. You don't bring up this, and I won't bring up that. But I feel like Gypsy was protecting him mostly in the therapist's office, and she totally felt betrayed in that moment when all of a sudden he was trying to act like that she cares about social media and what people think of her. And she's been saying that for the longest. She doesn't care, but the fact that she sits there and spends so much time on it shows that she genuinely does. Like, I understand wanting to be in the loop, maybe wanting to see what other people are saying about you, but to be going through comments that much, no, I don't think that's healthy for anybody to be doing. Then once the therapist could tell that that was starting to really strike a sensitive spot for Ken and Gypsy both. That was a very sore spot. So she's like, you know what? Let's go ahead and put a lid on that for today. We don't want to go too deep the first session. And I think that was a good idea, because if she would have overdid it, then they could have just blown up, walked out the door. I'm sure Ken would have been like, I told you this is why I didn't want to go to counseling, or something crazy like that. Especially when you have someone like Ken who supposedly shuts down when things get hard. You don't want him to shut down too early on. So she's still trying to keep things comfortable so she can keep the door as open as possible. So they went ahead and called it a day. And I wonder if they're going to continue seeing the therapist. I'm sure they will, because it just feels like we're not going to get a lot of drama this season. I don't think this season's going to be as good as the first season, because it was just crazy, you know, all the stuff going on with her leaving Ryan. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that I've seen on the preview for this season is stuff we already know, like the gender reveal. I don't know. I got to go back and think of what else we saw in there. I think she went to a family reunion where they're like boating, and some fans saw her and she was getting all mad about people taking pictures of her, invading her privacy. We all know about all this because there's articles that came out. Like, if you've been keeping up with Gypsyrose outside of TV, so I hope they at least save some tidbits that are gonna be like exclusive things we haven't heard yet. But even like a lot of things like Gypsy was saying in this season is like stuff that I feel like I've heard a million times before in documentaries. Oh, and the paternity test. That's what I was trying to think of just a second ago. The paternity test looks like it's going to be like the main thing this season builds up to. And I bet they end up saving that for the season finale. I really hope not. But I bet I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And we already all know the paternity test results. She already came out and talked about it. So, I don't know. But her and Ken decided to go look at houses. He did eventually find a house he liked and their offer got approved. But Gypsy's not able to move in right now, so Ken's just going to move in. I wonder if he's going to be holding it down and paying all the bills, or if Gypsy's going to be paying part of the rent even when she's not living there. Because I just feel like that would be really hard on him financially to be paying for all the bills by himself, especially after having to up and leave and move and leave behind his job, and he wasn't working for a good while in Louisiana, so he didn't have no money to save up. He was just taking money. So I'm sure that wasn't easy for him. Maybe Gypsy's helping out though. So they finally found the house. The next thing you know, they decided to go out and eat because it is their anniversary. I don't know. It's not really technically their anniversary, but Ken was calling it their anniversary. Technically, it was the anniversary of the first day they met. You know, if I'm celebrating an anniversary, I typically like celebrate like the day we first started dating or the day we got married, not the first day we met. You know, or some people be like, oh, we got to celebrate our 1 month or 2 month. I think that's so unnecessary. I don't know, you guys let me know in the comments below for all you married people. Do you celebrate, or I guess even people in relationships, because Gypsy and Ken are in a relationship. Do you celebrate the day that you met that person and celebrate that as an anniversary? I guess some people will use any excuse for anniversary. Why have one anniversary when you can have 5? But Ken wanted to go out to eat. And this is what I don't understand. It's like Ken is steady making all the decisions. Is he really that controlling, or does Gypsy not have any backbone? Because it's their anniversary, and I feel like if it's their anniversary, as a man, you should be like, okay, honey, what do you want? Or you should pick something that's like her favorite, or something that you know she would really genuinely like, that's gonna make her anniversary special. But it felt like the only person he was focused on making the anniversary special for was himself. He picks this seafood restaurant knowing that Gypsy hates seafood, and she said time and time again how picky she is and how she doesn't like seafood. And they've even went out to eat at a fancy restaurant like this before, and she didn't eat nothing. So he takes her to this restaurant, a seafood restaurant. Then on her own anniversary, she can't even pick the own restaurant, but she couldn't even pick what she wanted to eat either. He sits down, and when the waiter comes up, he speaks for both of them. He's like, yeah, give me the octopus and the risotto. But both things that she doesn't like at all. I feel like even if there was a seafood place, she could have found something she liked, even if there was just a salad or something. But he didn't even give her a chance to look at the menu. Like, unless the producers told him to go in there and order for them both and get something extreme that he knew she wouldn't like, then I just felt like that was so out of pocket, and he wasn't being very mindful of what she wanted for her anniversary. So once the food comes, he's sitting there eating, chomping down in front of her, and he wants her to take a bite, and of course she didn't like it. She said the octopus was too chewy, but she did swallow a little piece, so they made progress. She at least tried a little piece. Then the little risotto or whatever it was like tomatoes and bread came out. And he's like, hey, you want some of this? And she's like, okay. He put some on her plate, and she wouldn't even give it a chance. Like, at least take a bite or do a little nibble or little taste on the tip of your tongue or something. But she refused to do any of that. And once the waiter came up, he's like, okay, how was that for you, ma'am? She's like, it was amazing. And Ken was like, no, you didn't even try it. And he called her out right in front of the waiter, and she was mortified. She looked like she wanted to die right there on the spot. And you could tell she was ready to break down in tears at that point. So she had to excuse herself and go to the restroom where you could hear on her hot mic that she's breaking down crying. Like, I get it, he's just joking around and everything, but you don't have to call her out in front of the waiter and give her a little embarrassing moment. And I could tell that Gypsy felt betrayed by that. And I feel like she really thinks she's protecting Ken this season, and she just feels like he's not playing along. I think Ken is too compulsive. He doesn't really think before he speaks. And with Gypsy and how much she cares about how people see her and stuff like that, and how she looks on this reality show, I think that's going to be a problem for her. I think she wants somebody that's going to be quiet, somebody that's not going to expose her and just go along and make her look like the perfect little angel possible. And I do feel like Ken was joking around in this situation, but you didn't have to call the girl out in front of the waiter and cause that awkward situation. And even the waiter knew it was awkward. He's sitting here trying to say, oh, it's okay, she don't have to try it, it's okay. With Gypsy, all it takes is one thing to push her over the edge and she's done for a night. There's no coming back from that. Once she came back from the bathroom, Ken was sitting there trying to talk about moving in together, and she's like, we're not even moving in together, it's only going to be you living there. And he's talking about, oh, it's going to be so fun. And I think, again, her codependent self's like, oh, yeah, it's going to be fun, but it's not even another 6 months for me. And she almost feels like it's being rubbed in her face. But more than anything, I feel like nothing that he could have said at that moment or the rest of the night could have fixed things, because her whole night was ruined from that point forward. She was pissed off. She had a bone to pick with Ken, and she just wanted to get out there as soon as possible. And I bet the girl's hungry too. I would want to go home and eat some dinner. Get me a nice little snack. She's pregnant, and she had to sit down at dinner and watch you eat all this nasty stuff. No, I couldn't do that. Like, I don't even get how you can go out and not even eat. Like, I understand maybe wanting to save money if you're not hungry, but man, I'd have to get something, a good old appetizer or something. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.